Welcome to the Explainer. Okay, today we are diving into a really fascinating story. It's this incredible mix of a deeply personal medical journey, behind the scenes operational design, and get this, international relations. We're going to look at a very specific medical mission in the Pacific. It's going to show us how modern medicine is delivered, how we as patients actually experience it, and how healthcare can literally be used as a tool for global diplomacy. Honestly, by the end of this, you might just look at your next hospital visit in a completely different light. Okay, let's dive into this. The insights we're unpacking today actually come from a public health academic. Now, normally, he researches health leadership, but this wasn't some planned formal study. Nope, he was literally just accompanying his mother in Fiji for a last-minute cataract surgery. And stepping out of that academic bubble and becoming a worried family member, well, it led to a pretty powerful realization. He realized that, all those fancy data points and efficiency metrics, they really don't mean much if the human experience, especially for the most vulnerable, is being compromised. So to really understand what they went through, we gotta set the scene a bit. The surgery happened under the banner of the Bright Journey mission, and this was back in November 2025. It's a bilateral Chinese-funded medical outreach program that coordinates directly with Fiji's Ministry of Health. Basically, a team of super skilled eye experts from Guangdong province flew all the way to the Pacific Eye Institute in Fiji. And they brought the whole shebang, their own medications, supplies, advanced techniques, everything. During this one specific trip, they successfully pulled off 108 vision-restoring cataract surgeries. It was actually a huge milestone event. It marked a full decade of these Bright Journey missions in Fiji and celebrated 50 years of diplomatic relations between the two countries. All right, let's look at the timeline to get a real feel for the patient experience. The whole process was structured over 3 days, running 9 to 5. Day 1 was all about preoperative consultations. Day 2, the actual surgeries. And day 3 was for post-op checks. Now, having this highly predictable, neatly boxed structure, it sounds absolutely fantastic on paper, right? But it also perfectly sets the stage for what actually happens when unpredictable human elements crash into a rigidly structured system. So day 1 kicks off, and right away, there's this incredible moment of pure clinical precision. The author's mother had actually dealt with some tricky complications from a previous cataract surgery on her other eye, but when she sat down for her pre-op exam, the lead of the Chinese mission, Dr. Wei Rong, took a look and assessed those past complications in literally 5 seconds. 5 seconds. That ultra-fast, razor-sharp assessment was a total game changer. It instantly built a massive amount of trust and confidence in the medical team. But right alongside that amazing clinical speed, some pretty significant administrative cracks started to show. Take the consent process, for example. You had medical interns running around collecting signatures from these elderly patients, mostly just asking basic questions about allergies. The catch? The actual procedure itself and the risks involved were never fully explained. So you literally have patients getting their eyes marked for surgery and signing these forms completely blind, no pun intended, without the actual clinical context they needed. Now, what's really interesting about this slide is just how blazingly fast this was. When surgery day finally arrived, patients were promised the procedure would be quick. And wow, they weren't kidding. The surgical team used such advanced techniques that the actual cataract surgery took only 5 to 7 minutes per patient. Think about that, 7 minutes. It was this perfectly standardized, highly predictable medical procedure, and they were executing it flawlessly. Okay, but I want you to hold that 7-minute surgery in your head for a second and contrast it immediately with this number, 9. 9 hours. That is exactly how long the author's elderly mother spent waiting at the clinic on the very day of her 7-minute surgery. You see, the patients were all told to arrive between 7:30 and 8:30 in the morning, literally all of them at once. The mother got there bright and early at 7:30 a.m., but she didn't actually get her surgery until 4:30 p.m. For 9 grueling hours, these elderly patients, many of them dealing with mobility issues and chronic conditions, just sat there waiting on hard wooden benches. Most didn't bring any food or water because they had no clue they'd be there all day. And grabbing a bite at the expensive cafes nearby, yeah, that just wasn't an option for most of them. So how do you even survive a grueling 9-hour wait on hard benches when your anxiety is already through the roof? Well, you lean on culture. Despite the physical toll, these elderly patients managed to pass those long hours in true Fijian style through something called talanoa. It's this beautiful cultural practice of inclusive storytelling, talking, and just sharing with one another. Where the operational system completely failed them, the warmth of their own communities stepped in and provided real comfort. And honestly, that starkly illustrates the central tension of this whole explainer: clinical efficiency versus patient comfort. The mission itself was incredibly well-resourced, no doubt about it. But the operational design, it fundamentally prioritized surgical throughput. It was all about getting as many eyes fixed as humanly possible rather than managing a comfortable patient flow. The machinery of the clinic works perfectly for the surgeons, for sure, but man, it demanded an immense amount of endurance from the patients. A huge driver of all this discomfort was just the absolute lack of communication. Because everyone was called in right at the start of the day with no staggered appointment times, patients had literally zero idea when they were going to be seen. To make matters a bit chaotic, the local nurses had placed patient folders out on a public table right there in the waiting area. And, as human beings, we have a notoriously low tolerance for uncertainty, right? Especially when we're facing surgery. So you had these anxious patients constantly getting up, checking these public files, just trying to guess where they were in the queue. Obviously, this bred a ton of frustration, but thankfully, the committed local nurses were incredible. They bore the brunt of all that stress and handled the patients with this amazing, calm demeanor that everyone deeply appreciated. But even amidst all that operational stress, there were these quiet, really beautiful moments of empathy. Throughout the 3 days, the Chinese surgical team would intentionally step out of their sterile bubbles and come into the waiting room just to sit with the patients. And look, there was a massive language barrier here. But warmth and respect? That translates perfectly without a single word. Just a simple smile or a brief moment of connection gave those patients a deep sense of being seen, and it really helped restore their dignity. Let's move to and see how this builds into a much wider geopolitical picture. We've been talking a lot about health systems and patient care, but we absolutely can't ignore the broader context here, soft diplomacy. Now, usually when we think of international influence, we picture these massive billion-dollar infrastructure projects, right? Like highways or bridges. But soft diplomacy is completely different. It's about building genuine trust through cultural or, in this case, medical ties. By literally restoring people's sight, this mission is effectively winning hearts and minds all across the Pacific. The source actually frames this whole dynamic as a pretty clear geopolitical win-win. On one hand, Fiji's health system is described as fragile, dealing with some seriously aging infrastructure. But on the other hand, in swoops this fully funded bilateral aid, bringing with it world-class surgeons and top-tier supplies. The amount of goodwill this generates, it's just immense. In fact, the trust in this specific clinic grew so profound that even local members of parliament and former government ministers were showing up to utilize their services. So, the crucial point is, what can we actually learn from all of this? Well, the author outlines 5 really actionable lessons. First up, humanize delivery. Basically, actually engage with patients while they are in the waiting room. Second, for the love of all things, use data to stagger patient calling times. Nobody, and I mean nobody, should wait 9 hours for a 7-minute procedure. Third, improve those waiting spaces. Make them comfortable. Fourth, protect privacy by keeping patient files secure, not just sitting out on a table. And fifth, establish dedicated partner managers to coordinate these complex missions, making sure the aid directly aligns with what the local system actually needs. The story of this mission in Fiji is a wild ride. It highlights the absolutely incredible speed of modern medicine, the undeniable warmth of human connection, and the very intricate dance of global soft power. But it also leaves us with a really challenging question. And honestly, this applies just as much to your local neighborhood hospital as it does to the Pacific Eye Institute. Are modern health systems prioritizing the machinery of medicine over basic human dignity? It's definitely something to think about. Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer, and hey, keep asking the right questions.